So when we're going to actually run wine through the trailer, we have wine coming into our inlet. We're going to open our inlet. Each one of these style of valves, there's 3 of them, are what's considered a 3-way valve. So wine can actually travel in 3 directions. It's kind of like a T inside the valves. So we have wine coming in through our main inlet. It's hitting our first 3-way valve. So if you look at the valve, it looks like this on the inside. And the easiest way to remember is the T is always pointing the direction of the handle. So if we want wine to come in and turn straight into this first pre-filter. So right now we have the handle pointing towards the flow, so the wine is coming in and going straight this way. It's going all the way through this filter, and coming out. This filter's exit. It's coming out and into this filter, going all the way through the filter, coming out, and then going straight up this pipe, straight to the bowl. So that's the path that the wine is going to be following to get to our filter head. So we are ready to hook up wine and start filling the bowl. So now we're at the stage where the steam is finished. We've cooled down the bowl with the water. We've done our integrity test. So now we're ready to hook up our supply hose. So the hoses that we cleaned earlier, we'll take them out. We'll remove our water hose. And we will replace it with our wine supply hose. Alright, so now we are hooked up from tank to pump and pump to trailer. So at this stage, we have everything hooked up. Our pump is still in the off position. We are going to hook up our pigtail to our pump. Make sure we get it all lined up. At this point, we can open up our exit side, make sure that our gas valve is closed. So on the pump we have local, which is if we were going to control it like a standard pump with the remote, or we can switch it to remote. So remote basically means we're using a remote source to power the pump. That remote source being the trailer. So now we can go back. We have everything hooked up, our tank is open, tank is vented. Go to the trailer. I'm just opening up the tops of the filters so I can bleed air as the product comes through. So I'm just hanging the drain pan for draining the spouts, make sure we got all water out and wine in, and dropping the plunger down so the valves open when they pass by. So now I can communicate with the point person that he can close his bowl, lower his lid, close the bowl.
Spring loaded, so you do have to push and turn to get underneath this claw here.
So he's got the lid lowered. We have our supply valve is open. We have our filter vents are open. At this point, the process that we're doing now is basically flushing the remaining water that's in the system out, as well as filling the bowl and all the spouts and the filters with wine. To do that, there's this little plunger. When we drop that, what this is going to engage is the spouts to open as they pass over the pan. So Josh, you can go ahead and start the pump. So right now we're just waiting to see product come through our sight glass down below.
Once the lid's closed, I'll turn the pump on, which is this button here. This plunger will catch these arms, which will spin the top of the valve, which will open it up and allow wine to flow through the bottom here. and that line will empty into the drain pan and then down. Once we start spinning the carousel and we get all of our water out of here and we see wine, visibly can see wine, he will move that hose that's currently in the sink down there into his bucket. And he'll start filling that with the wine that we can now see coming out of the stocks.
So you want to actually just run it? We'll do it.
Sure. Pump on.
Yep. I'm just bleeding air out of the filters.
So now we've got liquid coming out. Our pump is working. And the bowl is starting to fill.
Start the carousel.
So now we're going to start the carousel. And to do that, we hit our green is go button.
One full rotation to get all the valves in the right spot.
Good. The guy, I'm over here more or less taking commands from him over there, so he can kind of watch the flow and everything of the wine as it's coming up. So I'm just on standby and waiting for his signal.
So right now, filling up the bucket, pretending like this is wine. So right now we're just making sure all the spots have wine in them instead of water. Once I feel confident that it's all wine, I'll raise my plunger up. So it'll stop opening the valves.
I can go ahead and stop my end over here.
Turn the vacuum on.
This is the vacuum. Now, one thing to pay attention to with the vacuum, what that does is it eliminates more wine from flowing out of the spouts. So it keeps everything in the bowl. Underneath here is the actual vacuum hose that we need to get up inside this hole here underneath, which is the actual vacuum. Just push it up in there, and the vacuum will hold that hose up in there.
Now that everything's stopped, I can remove the can.
At this point, all we're waiting for is the personnel on the end of the trailer to get ready to start dumping glass so we can start sending through. But before they start pushing it all through, we'll take a couple test bottles and we'll run through to check for fill heights, make sure our closure is good to go in the bottle, and we'll even run it down as far as putting a label on it. At that point, we'll give it to the client, the winemaker, the point person to double check and make sure all the specs are good, and then we'll start running bottles.
So now that we have a bucket of just wine, we bring that to the winemaker and he can decide whether he wants to add that back to the tank or use it as a topping wine or just pitch it all together. It's up to them to decide. We just give them a bucket and it's their choice. At this point, we're almost to the end of our tank. So the second person is going to basically come into the cellar, watch the volume of the tank, waiting for it to fully empty the tank. Now that our tank is completely empty, I'm just going to walk this hose, just basically helping the product along straight to the pump. Once I visually saw the wine enter the pump, I'll come to the pump and turn it off. Once all the wine has gotten to the exit side of the pump. Once it's at that stage, I'm going to close this valve. So what that's doing is not allowing any of the wine that's uphill towards the trailer to come back down. So we have all the wine on our exit side of the pump. From here, the last step we have to do is push the rest of the wine to the trailer. For that, I will get a gas line and we'll push use the gas. So this is something that we require the client to supply, some form of inert gas. So this is just CO2. All I'm going to be using is this to move, using the gas to move the wine, instead of the pump. It gives us, it allows us to get more of the wine out of the hoses than the pump, and it doesn't, and we aren't running our pump dry. So now I'm just waiting for a signal from the point man to let me know that the bowl is empty. So he should give us a thumbs up here in a minute. So right now we're still going straight into the bowl. So he's still filling bottles right now. But we have all of this, all the hoses, all the filter housings, all the pipes in the trailer are still full of wine. But this pump won't move anything if there's no wine on the other side of it. So right now, the only way to move this is by pushing it with something, and we use gas. So he is going to open the bowl back up, and now we're going to use our gas quick connect that we set up earlier. So I open that up, do the same thing on this side. Just helping the wine along. Usually once I get to about here, I'll swing around to the front side. So we're still currently pushing with gas. So I'm coming inside to look at our sight belt. So there's no more product in our sight finder, viewfinder, so I'm just gonna close the supply valve. Now we gotta run down and turn our gas off. Close our gas supply, disconnect our gas, and it might spit out a little bit. We're just gonna crack that open to relieve the pressure, and we are done. Just bottle the tank of wine. So this whole process will be the same whether we're going from tank to tank or finishing for the day. You always want to try to remove as much excess wine in all the lines as possible before you finish. Depending like that, we're switching wines right now. I would do the same process as basically starting. So we just finished a lot. We had pushed all the remaining wine in the hoses up to the trailer with the gas. At that point, I can go into the winery, locate the next tank that we're going to be running, hook up our hose to that tank, make sure that the lid is vented on the tank, and then it's the same procedure as the first wine that we started on today. So I'm bleeding the air out of our hoses, making sure everything is tight, all of our clamps are good, and waiting for the signal to start pumping wine up the trailer.